All right, welcome back, everybody. Today is going to be a real simple tackle tip Tuesday. I'm going to try and keep it short and to the point. I want to help everybody that likes creek fishing, likes river fishing, getting out on those new bodies of water that are away from, you know, public or whatever, or even if it's an urban creek or an urban river, doesn't really matter because you can fish them the same. So today's tackle tip Tuesday is all about how to read rivers and creeks and fish them better. Okay, so first things first, I just want to explain this so you guys understand how I'm going to go by doing this. Whiteboard, thanks to the recommendation of a couple of different subscribers over the years. I forgot your names. You can comment below that you you were the one that recommended this or one of the ones, because I know it was a couple different guys said it. But I'm going to try and don't make fun of my drawing. I'm trying to help you guys. I'm going to attempt to illustrate what I'm talking about so that you guys, when you're looking at a river or a creek, you can understand exactly what I'm talking about as far as like the descriptions. So I'm going to try and get started, and I'm going to talk to you guys through it, and hopefully this helps you guys catch some more fish when you're out in the rivers. Okay, guys, so you've seen it. I told you about it. Basically, I'm going to try and describe in detail because it's going to be the only way I can really get it across to you guys, and hopefully with my awesome drawing skills you guys are going to be able to understand what I'm trying to get to as far as like how you guys can read a river or a creek, and actually by doing it this way, like when you start looking at them this way, no matter what river or creek you go to, if there's fish in it, you guys can find them. So yeah, let me draw this up real quick. I'm going to try and do like a basic illustration of everything, and then I'm going to point things out and describe them. That way when you guys are looking at it, you'll be able to visualize, or even if you can't just visualize it, if you go to a creek or something and you see this thing that I drew or illustrated for you, you'll be able to actually look at it and kind of understand like, okay, this is where this is why they're here, this is what they're doing here. I'm going to talk less and draw more for a second here, and hopefully you guys get a good understanding of it. Leave in the comments below if you think this helped you guys, and if you're new here and you're not subscribed, first of all, I'd love it if you subscribe. You don't have to, but if you want to, subscribe, and then leave in the comments below if you're new here, if you've seen any of my other Tackle Tip Tuesdays. I have a bunch of them. I have like 20 of them or something like that, but if this one helps you, or if this one's kind of, down your alley or whatever, leave that in the comments. Let me know if it's helping. And then 2, I'm always looking for different things to talk to you guys about for this season. I'm going to do Tackle Tip Tuesday for the rest of this season, and I don't know if I'm doing it next year. I have a lot of good plans for the future here. But if you guys have any ideas on things that you want me to go into detail on, and I mean, it's everything. Like, it can be waterproofing stuff, it could be tying drop shot setups, anything. Leave it in the comments below. But yeah, I'm gonna get started here on the just drawing, and hopefully my drawing skills are okay. All right, so I did what I needed to do to draw basically a start to finish type thing. This is just one way of doing this. This isn't the end all be all of how you would get this done, but it's a good base plan to start with. So anywhere in the world you go, there'll be rivers and creeks. Pretty much anywhere in the world. Even Arizona and Texas and some hot places have rivers and creeks. So if you want to get out fishing and catch some more fish, let's get started on this. I'm going to try and walk you guys, like I said, through from the beginning of it to like the end of it, and kind of how I would go by doing it. Okay, so like I said, small little thing to draw all this on, and my writing is just as bad as I remember it. I haven't actually had to write anything in a long time, so you guys can make fun of my 5th grade writing levels, but this is basically everything you need to know in a nutshell. And it's one of those things, like I said, this is just one way of doing it, and it's just a way I like to start and kind of finish through and know that I'm getting everything covered. So first things first, obviously if you start on a road that crosses a river or a creek, that's going to be your starting point, the bridge. One thing I didn't draw would have been down here is what I like to do a lot of times instead of starting on the upside. So this is the way the water is flowing. So you're walking upriver. You want to always walk upriver if you can first, because then if you have to go backwards, then you're walking downriver back to the start, or you get out of the water and walk back. But what I like to do here is if I'm coming up on a bridge starting, if I'm not just starting at like a random point on this thing, I like to actually start on the downside of the bridge, because on the downside of the bridge, a lot of times there'll be a hole here. And when the hole is right here on the back side of the bridge, you can come walking down the side of the bridge here and fish this whole entire area and usually get a bunch of fish here right away. Now, the ability to fish that is going to be a lot like fishing some of these other spots, so I'm not going to go into detail on like how to break down that hole. Pretty much just try and cover top to bottom, so top of the water surface first, and then work your way to the bottom, you know, banging the bottom or bouncing jigs off the bottom, whatever you want to do. Now, so starting at the bridge, if you're walking up, one of the first things you'll probably come across, especially if you start by a bridge, is a shallow riffle spot right by a bend in the river. It doesn't matter if it's a right hand or a left hand bend. What'll happen is from the water coming through this area, what will happen is you have this circulation of water that comes kicking through, and it speeds up, so it spits a bunch of the gravel out that would be in here into a shallow area. And sometimes those shallow areas will just be it's hard to describe because this is so small, but like think of this as like maybe 10-12 feet across, and then on the backside of it's a little deeper. That's where I like to start fishing first. I don't like walking right up to the first corner or something like that. The backside of these riffles, a lot of times, even if it's only like a foot or 2 deep, 2 feet deep, the backside of those will actually have a ton of fish stacked up waiting to go up and get into that deep pocket. So make sure you work that first. Then what I like to do once I've worked that is I'll walk up through there, but I will not pass the shallow water. I won't just walk right up to the pocket and start fishing it. I like to cast from as far away as I can. And what I'll do is, so in this illustration, the water comes down. You have like a deep circulation area here where it kicks back flow, but then kicks out here to this deep pocket. If you have that scenario, a good rule of thumb is even if the deep pocket's way over there, cast to the shallow corner, so your outside corner first, or inside corner first, and work your way casting out to the outside corner as you're fishing across it like this. Because a lot of times this will be too shallow, it'll have weeds, whatever. A good portion of that is filled in with silt and stuff like that a lot of times. So you're trying to cast across the pocket before you start just darting right into the pocket. That's a pretty simple one. You just cast out. Obviously, you're trying to get as close to the shoreline as possible, but you're trying to come across what little break line there might be there. The easiest way to say it is like, so this was like, these rocks might have been coming out of the water. You had some rapids or whatever like that, or turbulence. If this is shallow here and you got a deep pocket, that's a break line. So I a lot of times will attribute all my lake fishing knowledge to the river fishing knowledge, and kind of vice versa, back and forth. But what you're trying to do is work it across that break line or along it. And by doing that, you're covering all the basis of attack points for the fish. So that's the next pocket to hit. Now, just a word of the wise, if you're walking up a river, don't walk to the outside bends. You're going to end up finding yourself in a hole sometimes over your head. It does happen. So try to crisscross corners. That's the easiest way I can say it. And kind of be mindful of where you're stepping, and just watch for the shallow spots. Sometimes they're sporadic, whatever. Now, I'm just basically talking straight through this because I don't want to take it forever. But so once you're here, this is all time dependent on you, what you have time to fish. So that's how long it takes to fish an area. Don't rush yourself. Make sure you work stuff properly. But so once I walk up this shallow spot, 9 times out of 10, between two corners, you'll have another shallow spot. Something like this sometimes, so those will be rocks, and then you'll have like another break line like on the backside of that, and you can fish that. But sometimes it's just a big flat, and sometimes those big flats just have tons of weeds on them. Now, if you have a surface lure that's weedless, that's a great time to throw it over the top of those. Otherwise, I usually just walk along the sides of these and try and find pockets to fish. Otherwise, if you can't find the pockets, go to the next scenario. So like I just wrote weeds and shallower. So sometimes that's a foot deep and weeds and you just can't fish it. Sometimes it's 3 feet deep and there's fish in there, but the weeds are so thick or the rocks are so thick or whatever that you still can't fish it. So then that's an area that usually you can only fish like top water or the weed pockets. Now the next scenario, this should happen at least one time in whatever river or creek you're walking in. So you'll come up to an area where the water is flowing down and there's an actual like over 90 bend. So like instead of a 90-degree angle, it's coming back on itself and kicking the water back towards this point while flowing across this. So what you're going to get here is like water kicking out here, and that's why you got a deep pocket. But you also get like this convection where that's a hole. So that could be like 10 feet deep. Like that could be your deepest hole that you'll most likely find is wherever you find fast water into like a circulating gyre or whatever. But with that water kicking back up here, this can be your backflow. So you'll end up with a current seam right here. I was trying to figure out a way to draw that, so I just kind of pocketed it out. But you'll end up with a current seam where water's going this way and water's going that way. A lot of times fish are sitting in that slack water right there, that backflow. So don't just go walking out and just fish this. What I like to do is, depending on where the corners and stuff are at, a lot of times I'll fish across the deep hole or the backflow area. I'll look for the current seams, so wherever the convection is pushing the water back and forth, and the backflow area where it's going to come back around again. So like water only goes so far back upstream before it gets sucked back in and gets pulled back down. So that that current seam, and it's where two currents are crossing each other. One's going north, one's going south type thing. Fish sit in there looking for food. So that's a big thing that you got to keep in mind is when there's fish sitting somewhere, they're a lot easier to catch. Now, the next thing, I was going to try and duplicate this, but it's more along the lines of like a lot of times it's right before something like this. Sometimes it's all by itself. So sometimes you're just walking up along straight, like so this goes on forever, whatever, and then you run into a spot where there's a little hole and then there's a bunch of rocks. So like full rapids. And that's what I was trying to do down there, is like the water breaking at the end of the rapids. Don't you guys love my illustrations? Hopefully this is actually helping some of you guys out. I'd really like to know if it's actually helping you guys out or if I'm just talking too much here. But anyways, so after you fish this stuff thoroughly and you've found your safe way through here, because there's usually a deep hole in this area too. Sometimes backflow areas are all deep. So instead of just being like this pocket area, it's this whole corner. So you got to walk across the land, otherwise you're over your head here. But if you come across a big rapids area, always fish the bottom of the rapids thoroughly. And I mean, cover those as well as you can. Sometimes you can cast up into the rapids a little bit, and that'll help you, because anything that comes through there's a stack of fish down here waiting for you to basically catch them. So last thing here I'm going to go into is basically, so like this is a straight, and you know, as you're going along, you can just be coming along and have rapids like this, and on this side, this could be there. A lot of times that's what it is. Sometimes there'll be like a log jam or something like that, you know, on this side of it. But what you'll find is you'll just find a spot that's as wide as the river or creek, and it's literally just deep. So there might be a little bit of rocks, a little bit of, you know, weeds in it and stuff like that, but it could be, so the whole river is, you know, 6 inches deep mostly, but then there's a stretch that's 2 feet deep, or like all the way down to 10 feet deep, whatever. It depends on river or creek. But that deep water, 9 times out of 10, is going to be what holds your biggest fish. Don't forget all these things. You know, big fish like to hide in pockets and weed edges and all these fun things. So that's something you keep in mind. Just keep covering everything really well. But these deep pockets are where I like to target my bigger fish, big catfish, northern pike, all that stuff, because they have room to roam around in there. It's like a little mini lake or pond. So yeah, if you come up to an area and it drops off going up, hop up on shore or whatever you got to do, and fish this whole thing thoroughly, slowly, fast, do all the above, and you know, just make sure you cover all your bases on what you're fishing for. So you know, small lures to big lures. I'll do a different Tackle Tip Tuesday if you guys want me to. Just let me know what you guys might want. If you guys want a Tackle Tip Tuesday on like if I have a couple boxes that I put together specifically just so that when I'm walking down creeks and stuff like that, I only have to carry the one rod. I have my backpack, my boxes, and a lot of times I'll bring like one plastics bag. I tend to not bring live bait because you don't really need it. And then on top of that, if you have a good enough box, you can kind of cover the spectrum of what will be in a creek or a river. And yeah, it just depends on what you're fishing for, really. So if you guys want me to do one of those or multiples, I can do different loadouts or whatever you want to call them for different scenarios. Like if I'm bass fishing or trout fishing or perch or bluegill, whatever. I can get pretty specific as far as like the rivers and creeks go. But I hope my my magnificent drawing helped you guys out today. If it did, leave a like. Obviously, you know, it helps the channel out if you guys leave likes, you know, and then I get an understanding of whether or not to do anything like that again, so I'm not wasting my time, because these do take time to make. Drawing that didn't take as long as I thought it would, but it's one of those things, like, I probably could have did a better job if I had more time and more availability to do it, but I'm rambling. I hope it helped you guys out today. Obviously, like I said, leave in the comments below if it does, or if there's anything else you want me to go into detail on it about. I'll mention it if I'm out. I'm going to be creek fishing a lot here in the future, so all the way until there's ice, I like to do creeks and rivers a lot, because fish get active. When they get active and the water cools down, you get more fish. So more action, more fun. Time to get out filming. So obviously, if you're not new here, you know what's up. But if you are new, please just remember to